All right, we are here for Mike Reiss. I have to say it right. It is not Rice. I am your host, Sir John. I host a radio show on WESU here in Connecticut called Planet Comics. And hopefully someday Mike will come on the radio show. It'd be very cool.
Well, you have to ask me.
I do have to ask you.
I don't just show up at places.
I'm putting you on the spot here. But anyway, Mike Reiss, shortly off of a Friars Club appearance, coming all the way to Terrificon. Written a great book. We'll be talking about that. Also with Mathew Klickstein, who I don't know much about.
I won a raffle prize to sit here. That's what happened.
Really?
Here.
Is that how that worked? Okay.
Yeah.
And we are here to talk about everything that they've worked on with Springfield, and maybe even this great podcast. If you haven't heard it, I love this podcast, especially since I learned that you are called, what was it, Monsieur Blanc in a certain African country.
That's right.
so that's fun. But the podcast, What Am I Doing Here?, which we will be learning about as well. Take it away, Mike.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you. It's so nice to be here. I got to start by saying something you don't hear a lot of people say, which is, I am thrilled to be in Uncasville, Connecticut. And I actually mean that sincerely. I am from Bristol, Connecticut. I am from very nearby. All my friends from high school are down here every weekend blowing their disability checks. But I love to be here. The Simpsons has more writers from Connecticut than any other state. It's about a quarter of our writing staff is from Connecticut. And when I ask people, why do you think that is? They always have the same answer. Who cares? But I care. It's very important to me. It's so important to me. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story, which is the very first joke on the very first episode of The Simpsons had Homer losing a game of Scrabble and throwing the whole game in the fireplace. And I saw that happen in Bristol, Connecticut. My friend's father did that. So it's an important part of the legacy. So when I won my first Emmy for The Simpsons, I told my wife, take a picture. I got to send it to the Bristol Press, my hometown paper. And she did, and 4 days later, there it was on the cover of the Bristol Press, me in a tuxedo holding an Emmy over the headline, "Local Man Claims to Win Award."
That sounds right for the Bristol Press.
Yeah. So anyway, I've been at The Simpsons now for 34 years. I just started my 34th year writing for the show. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, it's good. It built into something not insulting. And I love the job, and it's not about the money. It's about the junk that money can buy. And I mean junk literally. I spend it on heroin. But that's it. I love the job. I love The Simpsons so much that I wound up writing the definitive book on The Simpsons. There's half a dozen books out there about the show. They're terrible. And Mathew Klickstein got me to write this, helped me write this, is probably instrumental in the best parts of the book. And it's a book. The book was an international bestseller. It was a bestseller in America. It was up for the Thurber Prize in American Humor. It's been translated into
6 or 7 languages.
6 or 7 languages. And we didn't have copies of the book to sell at the convention this weekend, but I had all the foreign ones.
Except the Russian ones. We never have gotten a copy of it.
The Russians, did they pay us?
What? I think we got paid or something. Yeah, I don't know. Those crafty Russians.
But I did. I sold copies of the German language version of this and the Spanish language. You people will friggin' buy anything. At least I see people buying the big swords and they're gonna break on the way home. So at least the book won't break. So Anyway, Matt, you want to talk?
Yeah, I have to say one thing, just because this is all about selling stuff. When Mike says that there's a half a dozen Simpsons books out there, he means the year that our book came out. There was a half a dozen, and I don't think I'm exaggerating. There was at least 3 or 4 that came out about all different kinds of things, and there's still, I think, since then, at least another 3 or 4 books. Mike was really hoping this would be not only the definitive Simpsons book, but would kind of put the kibosh on all the other Simpsons books. But no, they just keep coming out one after another. But what is good about this, though, what's important about it is when Mike says it's the definitive book, it is important to note it is the only long form Simpsons story from an insider. Yes, you get a little bit of the Simpsons story from some of the autobiographies of some of the actors, Hank Azaria and Nancy Cartwright, but nobody else before or since who's directly involved in the show has done a large form book or even a documentary. There's all these different podcasts and things that fans and such do, but if you want the real story of the Simpsons from a guy who's one of 2 people who's written for it since it started, created or co-created probably your favorite character from the show, this is the guy, this is the book, and I have to agree, listen to his podcast. There's no dogs in the background. But it's the one real insider book about the Simpsons, Springfield Confidential.
If we look, this suddenly turned into a commercial for a book that came out 5 years ago. I mean, we're not selling it hard.
Yeah, I won't say anything else now.
I think you can get it on Amazon for 30 cents now, and if that's too much, if you blew it all on Swords this weekend, it's in every library in the country, and you can get the e-book in every library. So we're not chasing their money.
Yeah, I'm done. The audiobook version's really good, though. Mike reads it. He's very funny. He's got a good delivery, as you can tell.
And I'll tell you before and we'll move on. And I think we have a mic, right? We have questions.
Yes.
The way the book came about, I thought, I've been at The Simpsons so long, and I thought, if I do this book, it's going to get me fired, and thank God. I mean, I'm really sick of it. So, but it was, Matt called me up. I'd never met the man, and he called me up, and he said, Mike, we're going to go on a road trip across country, and you're going to give speeches about The Simpsons, and I'm going to write a book about the travel. And since my mother always told me, if a stranger offers you a ride, take it. So I said yes, and I figured, what the heck? And that's how the book came about. Oh, I'll tell you one more story, and then we'll get on with it. Which is, Matt did all the work. He wrote a beautiful treatment, a beautiful proposal for the book. He contacted publishers, and 2 publishers invited us in to speak. And the first publisher we went to,
they invited us is the important part.
You got to remember, they invited us in. I won't say the name of it, but let's call it Schmeiman and Schmooster. This publisher invited us in, and the publisher who invited us is sitting there like this, and he just looked so mad. He looked like an angry bullet, and he's just sitting there, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Who the hell are you? Who are you to write this book?" He goes, "You're not Tina Fey. Do you know that? You're not Tina Fey." And I said, "Oh yeah, I noticed that in the shower this morning." And it didn't get a laugh there either. And
it did happen.
And that was it. And he just yelled at us for 20 minutes. And I may be imagining it, but I think he kicked us in the butts to get us out of the room. And then we went across town to HarperCollins, where they just bought it immediately. It was like it was already a done deal.
They pretty much rolled out the red carpet. But Mike is not exaggerating a single thing. I don't know why the guy invited us in just to yell at Mike for 20 minutes for not being Tina Fey, and then telling us to get out. And we took a cab to HarperCollins, and they were like, "Let us tell you why we want this book. Like, can we get you any chocolate or?"
It was great. We couldn't get out of there. So the book, as I say, came out. It got universal good reviews all over the world. So maybe I am Tina Fey. Do you have any questions? If you have any questions, please line up.
Microphone's right there. Please use it.
Here's the guy. We're 1 in a row. It's not exactly a line. It's more of a hyphen.
Well, first,
Oh, great. Oh, this is so nice.
Should
Thank
work.
you.
well, first of all, I didn't know Tina Fey was an expert on The Simpsons. and now I have to learn German to read your book, so that's a little disturbing too. But the question I have for you, you've been doing this for 34 years.
Correct.
Obviously, when you started this out on the Tracy Ullman show, you probably had no idea that this was going to go for 34 years. Do you have an idea of, like, if you're going to wrap this with a, I was just talking like series, what makes a great series is when they have a good ending to a series. Not to say that you're ending this year or next year, may you go for another 34. But at some point you have to, either you wind down and you get canceled or you reboot. So I didn't know if you guys had any plans of how to exit or to reformat or to,
Okay, yeah, it's. I'll give you two answers because it's sort of two questions. One is, when the show was starting up, I got the call from Matt Groening. He called me at home. He said, we're starting a new show called The Simpsons. I'd seen the shorts on Tracy Ullman. He said, we're starting a new show on it. Would you like to work on it? And I said, why are you calling me? You don't know me. And he said, I'm calling you because everyone else in town turned the job down. Nobody wanted to work on The Simpsons. It was not only nobody thought it would succeed, there were people who thought it's career suicide to work on a cartoon for adults on Fox. I mean, it's hard to get yourself, this is 1988, it was a different mindset. So nobody took the job. I took the job. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing because I thought, I've hit rock bottom here. And a week before the show began, all the writers are sitting in a trailer together. Now that shows you something, how little faith Fox had in the show is we didn't even have a room. We weren't in a building. We were all in a trailer, and we had the idea that if the show failed, that you're just going to back the trailer up to the ocean and drown us. And so that was it. No one, and the entire writing staff, except for me and my partner Al Jean, who'd worked on a couple of sitcoms, nobody had ever written a TV script before. This was everybody's first TV sitcom writing job. So, no, we did not think it was going to run 34 years. And since season 2, so for now 32 years, we've been trying to think of a good last episode. No one's ever had a good idea. But what is now about 10 years ago, the show looked like it was going to get canceled. And it wasn't going to get canceled for ratings. It was going to get canceled because the budget was too huge. And the problem is just, not that we expend exorbitantly, but everyone who works there gets a little raise every year. And if you've been there, 25 years, you got a lot of raises. And so the janitor at the show was making $700,000 a year. And so they were going to cancel us, and we said, what are we going to do? And then a show came back. We write the shows and record them, and then we send them to Korea for animation, and we don't see them for 3 months, and then they come back and we see how it turned out. And everyone got excited. They go, this is a great last episode of The Simpsons. We're going to get canceled, and here's a great last show, because it was set at Christmas 25 years in the future. And we saw, The Simpsons began with a Christmas show, would end with a Christmas show. We were so happy we had our last episode, and then we didn't get canceled. And we're there, screw it. And so that was it. We showed that episode. So now we're back in the same boat. And again, we think a lot about this. No one has ever had anything close to a decent idea. And you got to think, almost every show, big shows do big high-profile endings, and everybody hates them. Seinfeld, Sopranos, nobody seems to do it quite right. So I think that's what's going to happen with us. I guess the best idea is just to keep running forever. Thank you.
Works for me.
Hello, my name's Jimmy. I'm from Wethersfield, Connecticut.
Okay.
And I was wondering, 2 things. One, who was your favorite character that you guys wrote outside of The Simpsons? And 2, what are your opinions on The Simpsons video games?
What are
your opinion on The Simpsons video games?
Okay. Favorite character, I'll say my favorite character I created is Troy McClure the washed up. I like Troy McClure, and he's named, for people who don't know, he's the washed up TV actor, and I named him after Doug McClure, who was a washed up TV actor. He was on a show called The Virginian, and he was Troy McClure. He was sort of a handsome idiot. What I didn't know, and I heard this from Doug McClure's daughter, was Doug was a big fan of The Simpsons, and he's sitting home one night with the family, and they're watching The Simpsons, and this character, Troy McClure, comes on, and he says to his kids, "Are they making fun of me?" And the kids watch it for a while. They go, "Yeah, Dad, I think they are." And he just goes, "Well, it's pretty friggin' funny." So I'm very proud of that character. And I later found out his kids would call him Troy McClure behind his back. So that was it. What was the second question?
The second question was the video games.
Right. So The Simpsons, about 3 or 4 years in, put out their first video game. And we did what every single show does, every movie does. You farm it out. You farm it out to a company. And people hated it. I mean, I didn't play it, but I don't know. It was Marge was killing people with a vacuum cleaner. It was just a piece of crap. And people hated it. And, it was the first thing The Simpsons had done that got bad reviews, and people didn't like it. And from then on, we said, gee, if anything goes out with The Simpsons name on it, we want our writers all over it. So the Simpsons video games, like Tapped Out, is written by our Simpsons writers. They take time off from the show to do Tapped Out. We have the ride at the 2 Universal theme parks, the Simpsons ride. That was one of our best writers. We said, take the year off and write this ride. So we care about that stuff. We care about any product that goes out with the Simpsons name on it.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
Wait, may I? With the Troy McClure one,
Yeah.
there was something similar that happened with one of our great American presidents, was there not? Jimmy Carter.
Why am I forgetting? Tell the story. Oh no, I will tell this story. This is a good one. And I heard this from Jimmy Carter's grandson. This is not urban legend. Jimmy Carter's grandson, when he was a kid, told his grandpa, President Carter, he said, "You got to watch The Simpsons. I know it's a cartoon, but it's political satire. I think you'll really like it." So Jimmy Carter tunes in that Sunday, and that happened to be the episode where Springfield was trying to buy a statue of Abraham Lincoln. They didn't have enough money, so they wound up getting stuck with the statue of Jimmy Carter. And it starts a riot in the town, and somebody calls Jimmy Carter history's greatest monster. And Jimmy Carter was watching that, so that's why, the one guest we've never had on the show is the U.S. president. We've had all these celebrities. We've asked every president from Gerald Ford to Barack Obama to be on The Simpsons. They all turned us down. The closest we got was about 10 years ago. We asked Bill Clinton to be on the show, and we sent him the script, and he wrote us back a handwritten letter saying, "I would be proud to be on The Simpsons, but I would never do anything to disgrace the office of the president."
Okay.
But we know that a lot of these guys definitely watch the show, not just Carter. I had Mike come out. I lived in Boulder, Colorado a couple times, and I had Mike come out for a kind of a sort of a thought bubble convention that they have, sort of like a Comic-Con except for academics type stuff, and Mike was speaking there, and I had seen that the governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, was literally using one of Mike's children's books, because he writes children's books as well, in a classroom environment where he was talking with kids. And so I actually, through some media contacts I was writing for a paper out there, got in touch with his office. I explained that Mike Reiss was coming. I could see Governor Polis was a fan. Would he like to meet him? They invited us out. I got to go as well. My wife came. It was really nice. Governor Polis is a nice guy. guy. But he brought up a few times, that he'd love to voice on the show. And we kind of, said, oh, that'd be cool and everything. As we're leaving, his secretary is literally bombing after us, running after us, pulled us aside, goes, no, Governor Polis would really would like to be on the show, and gave us their card. But I mean, he really wanted to be on it. So these people definitely, not only watch the show, but they want to be on it.
Yeah.
If they can be.
And it's funny, it's just interesting, because if it comes up, who's the guest you really want? I know this priest in New York who said, I can get you the Pope. I can get the Pope on The Simpsons. And then he even said, here's a funny way you could use them. And it's like, all right, I don't want priests pitching me episodes, but it was a great idea, so I'm going to steal it. He can get me the Pope. I go to Al Jean, who runs The Simpsons for 22 years. I'm trying to get him. I'm telling him, I can get you the Pope on the show. He said, I'm busy. I'm editing the show. I go, it's the Pope. And he had bigger things to do. So we've got the Pope in our back pocket.
Very nice. Mike, I got a real quick question before we move on here. But Mitch Halleck, our esteemed host of Terrificon here, told me that this is your first Comic-Con. Is it?
No. Did I? No. And if he doesn't pay me the $200 he owes me, it'll be my last Comic-Con. No, I'll tell you a funny story instead of just the real. When The Simpsons was red hot, the first couple of seasons, we did San Diego Comic-Con, which was probably about the size of Terrificon. It gets huger and more ugly every year. This is the right size. I've had such a great time here.
Awesome.
And they did a panel with The Simpsons, and everyone wanted to be on stage. So there were like 50 people in the audience and 65 on stage. And we're answering, and nobody's getting a laugh, and people, you don't know what they do on the show, are giving long answers. And finally, the moderator says, well, that's about all our time. And we're all leaving, and somebody said, gee, the hour went by like a flash. And they said, that's because they cut us off after a half hour.
Go for it.
Hi, my name is Nick. I'm from Howard Beach, New York, Queens.
Nice.
And my question was, what was your favorite episode that you were involved in writing? And what was also the toughest?
The toughest? Oh, gosh. My favorite episode, I guess, I wrote with Al Jean the Michael Jackson episode, which you can't see anymore. I mean, I'm sure you can find it somewhere, but they pulled it from syndication. It was just a treat to work with Michael Jackson at the peak of his fame, and about 2 weeks before everything kind of fell apart for him. He was just a great guy, and his manager told us, what you would expect from Michael Jackson. When he was coming in to record, they said, he's going to need a trailer. It's got to be heated to 90 degrees. You got to fill it with fresh flowers and 4 kinds of bottled water. And we said, fine, and we did all that. And he comes in. He didn't even know about his trailer. He just came right to the studio, shook everybody's hands. He laughed. He was just a great sport. So that I love everything about that experience. There was a tough one. It just didn't work out. If you know your Simpsons, it's the one where Homer catches the big fish, and he's at a marriage encounter
You didn't like that one?
What?
You didn't like that one?
It was a horrible production week.
Wow.
It was like, we had Mrs. Krabappel's husband, Mr. Krabappel, in that episode, and you go, if you know your Simpsons, you go, I don't remember him. No, that's because he didn't get one laugh, Mr. Krabappel. So that was it. It was just a hard week. It's mostly gone pretty well. So thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Joseph from Newton, Massachusetts, and I have a question. I I'm honestly wondering how come it took 17 or so years for The Simpsons to get an animated movie adaptation, because I noticed a lot of cartoons got movie adaptations in the 90s and early 2000s, but it took Simpsons such a long time for it to get one.
Yes, that's an excellent question. From season 2 on, Fox had been saying, let's do a Simpsons movie. And we said, we don't want to. And what can we give people in a movie that we can't give them on TV every week? And the answer turned out to be Bart's Wiener. So but we just kept putting it off year after year after year. We just said, we don't want to do a Simpsons movie. And it was finally about 15 years into the run of the show, they came in with all this data. They said, gee, this is the results of our polling. They said America wants to see a Simpsons movie more than they want another Star Wars movie or a Star Trek movie. It was the top of the list. And we said, gee, all right, we're going to give it a shot. And this is an amazing thing. It was in our contract that up until the week the movie came out, we could still pull the plug on it if we weren't happy with the movie. But it did. We worked really hard. And it was funny, after putting it off for 15 years, because we said we don't have a good idea, the writers came in on a Sunday and we said, all right, what are we going to do? And within 2 hours, we figured it all out. We figured out the entire plot of the movie you saw on one Sunday afternoon. So we made the movie, and the movie, people don't realize, it was a big hit. It's the second biggest 2D animated film of all time. After The Lion King is Us, and then I don't know what's next. And that was 15 years ago this week. So all these people, every year at Comic-Con, they put out a press release saying, new Simpsons movie on the way. And I go, wow, I'll go see that. So you can see, it's been 15 years. Nobody's interested in doing it again. Maybe, we're kind of waiting to go off the air and maybe take about 5 years off, and then maybe we'll do a movie. But it's not happening anytime soon.
Okay. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Step on up.
Kiss.
Hi, my name's Weston. I'm from Manchester, Connecticut.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say real quick, 2 of my favorite episodes of The Simpsons. One is, I believe, called The Town, where the Simpsons go to Boston.
Oh, yeah.
And as someone who's not from New England, that moved to New England, that, to me, perfectly encapsulated what it was like to move amongst New Englanders. And then my other favorite being the Halloween episode you did like 6 years ago that wasn't Treehouse of Horror, but it was a Halloween episode where they went to Halloween Horror Nights, and Homer's fighting like a bunch of transient Halloween store workers.
Oh, right. That was great.
Really enjoyed that one. But with that spirit in mind, what do you guys consider to be the best Treehouse of Horror episode?
Oh, wow. I like the 3D where we did Homer going into 3D land. And if you remember that episode, and I think we never did it again. I guess we've done a little CGI since then, but that was very early in CGI to do that. I don't know if we preceded Toy Story, but that was that for about 4 minutes, a kind of clumsy 3D animation cost $750,000.
Wow.
Now it's a free download. You can get that software for free and do it in real time. But that was a very exciting thing to do, and I thought it came out pretty funny. I'm very, very partial to the Halloween shows. They're the hardest thing we do every year, and it's generally the first show we record of the season. It kills the animators. It's so hard to do because everything's got to be reinvented, so we kill ourselves, and that's just episode 1, and now we got 21 more to do. And it will be, I think, our season premiere this year. I think October 3rd or something like that will be the new Halloween show.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Are you still doing commentary for the DVD collections?
Well, we don't do DVDs anymore because that's not a thing.
Yeah.
And That's it. I think we got up to season 20 or maybe 21.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
And no, we all, and it was something we did on our lunch hour for free to come in and do these commentaries, but it was pretty fun. One thing I like to say, just reminded me doing the Comic-Con thing, is Stan Lee would come in and do DVD commentaries with us.
Really?
And everybody was just awestruck by Stan Lee. We have a bunch of comic heads at the show, but not me. I didn't read Marvel comics. I don't give a crap about Stan Lee. So if you listen to any of those commentaries, I'm the guy, I'm the guy asking him, could Casper the Friendly Ghost beat up Superman?
Real quick though, if you haven't heard the commentaries on the DVDs that are available, highly recommend. They were actually not only very helpful for the book and being a Simpsons fan growing up on the show, which is why it's also kind of weird just to even be here right now. But they're not only very informative, but they are very funny. They're very interesting. On one of them, you guys actually called John Swartzwelder at one point because you're talking about people don't believe he exists. So there's special guests. So seriously, and this is something I make no money off of at all. If you don't have the DVDs or haven't listened to the commentaries, do, because they are a lot of fun and very informative. And you never know who will pop in either.
Step right up.
Hi, I'm Casey. I'm from Uncasville, Connecticut. And my question is, what is the worst or funniest fan theory you've heard about The Simpsons?
What is the worst fan theory? Oh, the worst fan theory. There's the most famous fan theory that's terrible is that we organized 9/11. Okay, yeah, a few of you, some people are laughing and a couple of people are nodding because they know this, that we did an episode where the Simpsons went to New York, and the whole episode is set at the World Trade Center, and I think Bart is holding a brochure that says $9 tour the World Trade Center, and the Trade Center looks like an 11, so it looks like 3 years before 9/11. We did a story about it on The Simpsons, and it's like, why? Why do we think, gee, someone's about to blow up the World Trade Center. We better put a joke about it in The Simpsons 3 years before it happens. It's idiotic, right? And yet, you'll see an explanation. Well, the Simpsons writers all went to Yale, where we didn't go, and and they all are in the CIA, and I don't know. And it's like, well, still, it doesn't make sense why we're putting it in a cartoon that we're organizing 9/11. Anyway. That's the best fan theory I ever heard. Okay, thanks.
Jim from Massachusetts, and actually you guys have been credited with predicting a lot of future things like Trump as president, and so just two quick. The first one is Springfield theories. Is it really based on perhaps Springfield, Mass, because that's where or is it just never been defined? And that's the first question. The second one is, does it get tough to keep coming up with ideas 33, 34, 35 years later, for storylines?
Sure. So great questions. Your second question, it's the hardest thing about our job is thinking of new storylines. We have such a funny professional staff, about 20, 25 writers, that once someone comes, and we have so many good characters, if someone comes in with a great idea for a show, boom, the machinery starts up. It gets very exciting to just watch saying, oh, and then Homer does this, and Sea Captain does this, and writing the jokes. But the idea is so hard, and I'll never forget some guy who didn't work on the show came in and said, what if Homer became a Catholic and knew everything he does during the week he can be forgiven for at the end of the week? And I feel like someone blew a bugle. They were so excited. We got a great idea, and everything came together once we had the idea. So that was very hard. What was the first question?
About
Springfield.
Whether it's based on Massachusetts.
Okay, when The Simpsons was starting out, we didn't think anyone was going to watch, and we just called the town Springfield because there was a terrible sitcom in the 50s called Father Knows Best. some of you are old enough to watch the show. I used to watch it when I was a kid. I didn't even know it was a comedy, but it was. But it did what all sitcoms did back then, which was it was set in a generic town, and you never knew what the dad did for a living, and that was it. It was set in Springfield. That's the only reason The Simpsons is set in Springfield, and all the fan theories about where is Springfield and that kind of thing. It all came from you guys because we don't give a crap.
I thought because there's a Springfield in every state, so I thought that.
Right, it worked out that way. Again, I wish it's like Simpsons predicting things. We don't predict anything. We don't think that far ahead. But it turns out there are 48 Springfields in 45 states. Now let that sink in. That means there are 3 states that have 2 Springfields, and that's been good for the show. It makes the fans kind of go crazy. I'll even give you, if you pressed us, if you put a gun to our head, we go, oh, it's in Illinois, Springfield, Illinois. But the guy who ran the show for 10 years, Mike Scully, he's from Springfield, Mass. Why not? Superman, yes, save us.
I have one question. Over the years, there's been many prominent writers that are part of the Simpsons staff that went on to go do other things like Conan O'Brien and Greg Daniels. Do you have any fun stories working with them or any other of the writers and how it came about creating the episodes?
It was just Conan O'Brien. He was. I'll tell you a quick story. I was on, like about half the Simpsons writers, I was on the humor magazine in college, the Harvard Lampoon. And I graduated, I moved to New York, I was writing for a magazine, and I got a call from college, from the Harvard Lampoon, and they said, we just got a guy on staff that is like nothing we've ever seen before. And it was Conan O'Brien, and I literally took a train up to Boston just to meet the guy, and the Conan you see on TV is the Conan I met when he was 19 years old. That was him. That was always Conan. He's funny. He's a wonderful writer. Poor Conan has had a show on TV for 30 years, and yet whenever he goes out, people go, you going to write another Simpsons? When are you going to write some more Simpsons? What do I have to do for you people? So that's about the only thing. Conan just came in his first day of work, and it became the Conan Comedy Club, and he was funny at 10 in the morning. Sometimes we would work from 10 in the morning till 2 in the morning, and he was funny then. And I would walk by his office sometimes, and he was alone in his office, and he was still doing shtick. He was still doing comedy in the mirror in his office. So that's it. Just an amazing guy. And Greg Daniels, just a great writer.
Conan was involved with a Prince episode that almost happened, right?
Yes. Yeah. We did a Michael Jackson show, and then a few years later we said, let's do one for Prince. If you remember the Michael Jackson show, it was about a 300-pound white mental patient who thinks he's Michael Jackson.
Good one.
And then we said, well, then a few years later, why doesn't he come back? And now the mental patient thinks he's Prince, and we'll get Prince to do the voice and write some songs. And we had some outside writers write the show, and then Conan, who was a new writer on staff, we said, fix this, make it better. He wrote a great episode. And the short version of the story is Prince did not do it, and now Prince is not returning our call.
Probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Hi there, my name is Adam. I'm from Stonington, Connecticut.
Okay. Where? Farmington?
Stonington.
Oh, okay.
And I was just wondering, writing for a show like The Simpsons, obviously you lampoon a lot of things. What's the funniest, response you've gotten, as a result of that?
We had an episode where we called Paris Hilton a moron. And the next day she sent us a basket of cookies proving that Paris Hilton is a moron.
or the cookies?
Okay.
Hi, my name is Amy, and I was wondering, you've worked on this show for so many decades. I'm sure your writing and your sense of humor has made its way into a lot of different characters. Is there a character that you would look at or cringe if your own family noticed that it's sort of a template or version of you?
There's all the writers, I think, will say this, which is they wish they were Bart. They wish they were a cool kid and sassy kid. They were all Lisa. Every one of us were Lisa. We were smart kids with no friends. So we were Lisa, 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 and then one day we woke up and we're Homer.
But there actually is a character that was loosely...
Oh, yes. Yes, I should mention that. I had a teacher in Bristol, Connecticut, Bristol Eastern High School, and he was deformed. He just had this deformity. He had a deformed hand, and first day of school, of class, he would shake hands with everyone, and it was a way of showing everyone, don't be afraid of the weird hand. And I told that story at a Simpsons story meeting, and he became Lisa's substitute. And Lisa said, if you remember the story, Lisa gets a crush on her substitute teacher, Mr. Bergstrom. That was the name of the teacher I had. And again, I told the story. He was deformed, and the deformity they gave him in the show is they made him look like me. Okay.
My name is Dan from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on all these different predictions come true? Not to hit a sore subject, but particularly the one of Disney.
Of which one? Disney?
And also, what was it like when Bartmania hit? Like, did you ever think that could be that huge?
Yes, those are great questions. Here's a neat. When The Simpsons was starting, again, they couldn't get writers to work on the show, and when I joined the show, because I had worked on a couple of other shows, I had some credits, and I had different offers, and they said, if you join our new show, The Simpsons, we'll give you 1% of the profits. So here we are, it's 34 years later, still no profits. The Simpsons, they love to brag, we've grossed $5 billion, but I'll get the financial statement. We've grossed $5 billion, but we've spent $5,008. So I still owe them 8 cents. The Simpsons will never hit profit. I've never gotten a penny. If someone offers you a choice between a percentage in The Simpsons and a piece of pizza, take the pizza. The predictions thing, I guess I got to address it. We think it's so dumb. I mean, we don't predict anything. We just make jokes. I did the math that over the years we've written 72,000 jokes for The Simpsons, and about 3 of them have come true. So it's about once every 10 years we get something right, which makes us the best psychics in America. And the 3 that come to mind are, we predicted that Brazil was going to cheat in the World Cup, and it's like, well, of course they are. And we predicted that the U.S. would win the gold medal in Olympic curling, which is like, who cares, right? And then the third one, which is a big one, is President Trump. We made a joke about President Trump in 2000. Now, mind you, when Trump was finally elected, and we're reading in the papers, The Simpsons predicted it, we all go, what? We did? Nobody had any memory that we had done that joke. And I finally got the story, which was, again, it was the year 2000. The writers were all sitting in the writers' room. The setup for the joke was, what's the stupidest thing we can imagine America doing? And somebody said, President Trump. And it got this big laugh. And this is the best part of the story was we told the secretary to type it up. And she goes, "Do you think it's too dumb?" Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always good stuff, though.
Hi, I'm Dory. I'm from Long Island. I'm a high school English teacher.
Okay.
So on behalf of English teachers everywhere, thank you for all the literary parodies because I use them all the time. So I was actually just wondering, what is your favorite parody that you've done of a piece of literature? And is there any work of literature that you'd still really like to be able to do?
What's my favorite literary parody we did on the show? Gosh, I know we did The Raven. I hate that one.
I've used your Hamlet. I know my colleagues use Das Bus all the time when they do Lord of the Flies.
I like we did Macbeth on one of the Halloween shows. No, it wasn't a Halloween show. I think it was a show about empowered women, and that was good. I mean, I just thought that really worked out. That was a pretty neat idea. My favorite thing, this is one of my favorite lines on The Simpsons, and it's so stupid. I forget what it was. It's like they said, "Lisa, what are you doing?" And she said, I'm reading Herman Melville's 2 neglected classics, Omu and Typee. And I just thought, that killed me when it was put in the show, because I go, that's never been in a sitcom before. So I like that. About half our writing staff are English majors, including me. And as far as I know, we are the only people to ever get any practical use out of an English degree.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, look who's here. That's my buddy.
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
Doing good.
Good to hear. You have so many amazing stories about The Simpsons, so I want to know, what stories do you have about Kelsey Grammer?
About Kelsey Grammer, I have one great Kelsey Grammer story. One thing about Kelsey, he plays Sideshow Bob. He's just great on the show. We just love having him in. And he's every bit as smart as Sideshow Bob. You know, we write these super erudite lines for him. We'll use like phrases from 6 different languages. He just nails it. He's just perfect. So he's as bright as Sideshow Bob. But there was... People even forget this because he's had such a beautiful career. My wife is filming the one thing she shouldn't be filming, which is in the early 90s, he had a lot of trouble with the law. He went to jail a couple of times for different infractions, Kelsey Grammer. And we're doing an episode, I was directing him, and we had a scene where Sideshow Bob is being thrown in a prison cell. And I said, all right, Kelsey, I need you to make the noises of a man being shoved into a prison cell. And he goes, oh, I knew how to do that.
Thank you, Mike. You're
Thank
awesome.
you.
It's always good about Kelsey.
I figured I can ask another question. That's kind of like what Homer would do.
There was a guy who looked just like you.
Thank you. Have you guys ever thought of doing a crossover with Futurama? Did you do it, or I missed
Yeah, we did it. Thanks for watching the show.
I missed it after season something or other.
Yeah, we did it about 8 years ago. Well, you know, we've done a lot of shows. You don't have to know them all.
Okay. And the other thing that, as long as we're talking about history, I remember you did one with the Checkers speech.
Yes.
Is there any other big political speeches that you've enjoyed pushing into, or feeding into the series?
We love our history, and it's all the history from when we were kids. So Nixon is on the show way too much. There's a ton of Nixon, and then of course if you watch Futurama, Nixon's on that all the time. As far as we know, there have only been like 4 or 5 U.S. presidents, and one of them's Nixon. So yeah, we like to do that. I'll tell you an interesting story. When The Simpsons began, Sam Simon, one of the creators, one of the godfathers of the show, he said, we're going to get a lot of heat for this show. We're going to get in a lot of trouble. So one thing we can do is, if we state a fact on the show, let's get it right. And this is before, there was no internet back then. It was hard, and the Simpsons writers' room looked like a reference library. We just had to get everything just right. We had an early episode where the Simpsons bring in an Albanian exchange student.
That was a good one.
He's speaking Albanian. I don't know where we found an Albanian child actor, but we got that. And so when we do stuff like the checkered speech and that kind of thing, we try and use original audio where we can, or at least get the wording exactly right. We do our homework. So if you see a fact on The Simpsons, you can take that.
Well, in
to
season
school.
1 somebody introduced me to your show, and they had recorded it on a VCR, and you mentioned something, and there's a scroll of names, and we slowed every name down at that point to see, this, for all the kids in the audience, there was a thing called the VCR, just to catch every name, and we were just so impressed that you guys would put that much detail.
Yes, and it was all our high school friends were there. That's where we got the names. It was just anyone we said, hey, we'll put their name on TV.
And that all had to be hand animated, correctly?
Yes.
At that point.
It did. Yeah.
So that's a lot of work for all that.
It's an especially a lot of work. People don't exactly get this. Some of you may know The Simpsons is animated in Korea, and it's because the show is still to this day, it's 32,000 hand-drawn drawings per episode, and we don't want to do it, so we send it to Korea. And I got to say, for at least 20 or 25 years, we felt this kind of liberal guilt. Oh, we're sending it out to Korea, it's sweatshop labor or something. Finally, my wife and I took a trip to Korea. We visited the animation studios. They're so much nicer than our offices. This is a really cushy job to have in Korea. They make more than American animators. It turns out it wasn't exploitive at all. And the only reason the business is there was a Korean animator came to America, got his training. He's the guy who animated the lightsabers in the original Star Wars. And then he took his expertise and brought it back to Korea. That's the only reason the animation business is in Korea. I forget. Oh, the whole point is the only problems that come with sending stuff to Korea is they don't get some of our cultural references. And I guess there's a scene where Mr. Burns is using a can opener, and they don't have can openers in Korea. And the machine is just operating. The can is spinning like 60 miles an hour. They just don't get it. There's a terrible story, but it may be true. Brad Bird, one of the great Simpsons animators, his big break was a show called Family Dog, and he hand animated this whole show about a dog that sort of is the savior of this family and protects this family, and it's very funny. You can see it on YouTube. But when it went to series, they had to send the animation to Korea, and in Korea, a dog is not a beloved member of the family. He's dinner. And so the dog apparently had no charm. They just didn't understand how to make a dog lovable in this cartoon. It didn't work out. Wow, I wish I'd stopped 10 minutes ago. Save me, dude.
I kind of two questions. I was wondering if you have any fun stories about writing the Monorail episode, and then also if you've ever thought about somehow bringing Apu back.
Okay. Wow. He said, what could be worse than that dog story?
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
So Apu, there's not even a short answer for this. I don't know how quickly I can tell the story. Here's the great thing about Apu. The whole Apu controversy broke because Apu was played by Hank Azaria, who's a Jewish guy from Queens, playing an Indian character. And a man named Harry Kondabalu made a documentary about it on Netflix. And he's the perfect guy to make this documentary because Apu is an Indian played by a Jew from Queens, and Harry Kondabalu is a comedian who never gets a laugh. So So he makes this documentary, Apu is racist. The problem with Apu, The Simpsons has to get rid of Apu. And it was a media firestorm. And Newsweek ran an article, Apu is racist. Why is Apu on TV? And I'm thinking, Apu was just on the cover of Newsweek 2 weeks ago, and he wasn't racist then. And, you know, if anyone had complained in the first 28 years of the show about Apu, we would have changed it. We've changed a lot of things over the years when we get bad feedback. But here's the great irony of the whole Apu controversy was all of America is saying you've got to get rid of Apu, and Hank Azaria is racist for doing Apu. And what nobody seemed to notice was Apu wasn't on the show anymore. Apu hadn't been on the show for 3 years because 3 years before this documentary came out, Hank Azaria was woke before woke was a word. He just came in one day and said, I don't feel comfortable doing Apu. And so we took him out of the show. He hadn't been on for 3 years. Nobody noticed he was missing. And I told this story. You know, I was on TV promoting this book at the same time the Apu thing, and I said, Apu hasn't been on the show for 3 years. And suddenly, everyone in America again gets it wrong, and they blame Harry Kondabalu for the fact that Apu's not on the show. He had nothing to. Everyone's mad at Harry. They go, "You killed Apu," and the guy who had just made the documentary saying Apu is racist said, "No, I love Apu." So that's it. That's where he is, and Apu is. You know, we just said let's not go back there. We don't need him. Nobody notices he's missing. Someday, I think we'll revoice him with an Indian actor, and everything will be fine, and that'll be that, and it won't be any big deal, I think. So, oh my goodness,
we're running out of time here. Do you have any comments about the Critic before we go?
Nothing short to say about the Critic. I've met so many Critic fans at this convention. And all I can say is, well, that's probably all of them. It's nice they all came to Uncasville. One last thing. So, and please take one of these cards. I do a podcast called What Am I Doing Here? My wife and I have been to 137 countries. I go places Jewish people should not go. I've been to Iran, Iraq, Algeria, Alabama. So it's a funny podcast of just funny, quick stories. Matt's been on the show.
It is really good. It's very smart and funny.
Funny and fast and free. So I hope you'll check it out. And thank you. I love the Simpsons audience.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much.
Hi, this is Maisie Richardson-Sellers, and you are watching Fandom Spotlight. Be a legend and hit that like button, and most importantly, have fun and follow your fandom.